Ren Fam. Today I am doing my very first requested video, so thank you Amanda for requesting this. Today we're going to talk a little bit about journaling. This may not be the most riveting video you've ever seen, but I'm actually really excited to talk about this because after Amanda suggested I do a video on journaling, I started looking at all my old journals and realizing kind of my lost love of it, and I really want to get back to doing more of it this year. So today I'm just going to talk a little bit about my experience with journaling, why I do it, why I find value in it, and why I think you should try it. Now, journaling is not a requirement to be a Christian, but I think it is a great tool that can be used if you want to kind of get to the next level in your relationship with God. Journaling has been something that I use that makes me feel really close with God, because when I'm journaling, the house is usually quiet, the kids are asleep, and it kind of forces me to slow down and process all the craziness that happened that day or that week, or slowly my thoughts come out onto the paper. For me, it's a very kind of relaxing, peaceful thing to do. In the past, I've tried a few different forms of journaling. There's basically 3 different kinds that I've kind of experimented with. The first one is basically a prayer journal that I would do in bullet form opposed to like paragraph form. I personally did not really like doing it that way. It wasn't as effective and it seemed very like rigid, but for some people doing it in bullet form really works. If you're kind of like a type A person and if you need things very organized, that might work a little better. But I would basically just put a bullet and write like a prayer request and then do another bullet and a prayer request. The type that I personally prefer is what I call a Dear God journal, and basically that's what it is. You just write Dear God and you go. It's addressed to God, and you're basically writing it as you're talking to him, and you are talking to him. To me, that's the most personal feeling, and it makes me feel close to God because I feel like I'm really truly writing a letter to him and talking to him. And there have been times where while I'm journaling, I get a lot of revelation and I feel God kind of speaking to me in that time as I'm writing my thoughts and my emotions out on paper. And the third is kind of like a Dear Diary type version, like Dear Diary, like you're writing it to the diary or you're writing it to the future person, whoever's reading it. So like, this happened today and this is how I felt, and just kind of writing it to anyone and no one at the same time. This is one of my old journals that I used to write Dear God journals in. It goes from about June of 2013 till January 2017. As I was preparing to make this video, I read through some of the entries on here and I found one that I kind of wanted to share with you and use it as an example for why I love journaling so much and why I find so much value in it. September of 2014, I wrote, "Life is hard, just in general. It feels like recently, after several stress factors were added to our life, that this is now our new life and it's not ever going to change. That it will always be this hard for Phil and I to get along, to connect. I know that life happens in seasons, but I don't see the light at the end of the tunnel of this rough season. God, please help me, help my mindset, help my outlook and attitude. Help me to have hope for the future, because it feels pretty bleak right now. Please give us favor with our house and all the things that seem to be going wrong with it. This is a huge stress for Phil, and it just doesn't seem to ever end." Basically, when I look back and I read that, there's so much value in being able to see what I was going through at that time, to read that and to be able to feel the emotion that I was feeling in that time and in that season. I know that if I were to not have that written down and just think back to that time, there's no way I would be able to remember the detail of kind of the struggle of how I felt and the emotions that went into that really hard season we were in. And being able to look back on that time and see how God brought us through it and how faithful he was in basically transforming our family and our marriage. If I continue to read through the journal, I'm able to kind of see that journey to where we are today and see how amazing God is and how He's working in my life. I have another journal, and this is probably my favorite journal that I own because it is very valuable to me and very sentimental. And that is this journal, which is a journal that Phil and I decided to write. We started when we were dating, and we each had one, and we would write to each other while we were dating and while we were engaged. The last entry is written on the night before our wedding, and we gave these journals to each other on the day of our wedding. In here I have little love notes that we wrote each other while we were dating, and like different like Valentine's cards, things that I wanted to keep that are just kind of fun and cool to look back on. And I wrote out all the memorable dates that we went on, the things that were said, the specific times that, monumental things happen, like the first time we said I love you, or the first time that we kissed, or I wrote out our entire engagement story from start to finish with very, very fine detail. And having this it's invaluable to me. Like, again, if I were to think back to these special moments, there's no way I'd be able to remember it with as much detail as I'm able to read it in this notebook. I know that one day my kids will read this notebook, and my grandkids, and hopefully so on, and it'll get passed on to the generations. And I mean, how amazing is that? And then one more type of notebook that I have 3 different notebooks for each kid, and I start them when I'm pregnant, and I write down just random stuff that I want to remember, dates that different things happened, and really fun moments with the kids. And now I'm starting to write funny things that they say, because it's like every day they're saying hilarious things that I want to remember. For me, the biggest part about journaling in a spiritual way is that I'm able to see how God has worked in my life, how He has changed me and helped me grow, and been faithful in times where I had no hope and I didn't see how I was going to get out of it, but I did. And now my marriage is better than ever. I have an amazing family, and being able to see how God brought me from that journal entry to now it's a testimony, and it gives me strength to be able to move forward, because if I go through another hard time, I know that God will bring me out of it, because I can see how He brought me out of that hard time. So for me, journaling is more like one of those things where I think you're never really going to look back and say, oh, I really regret having these journals. They're so pointless, and I wish I had never done them. But there's much higher of a chance that you'd get to the end of your life and say, I really wish I would have wrote down these really important, big, monumental things in my life, because as you get older, your memory gets foggy and you're not able to remember. Being able to go back and read love notes from your spouse, or read about hard times that God brought you out of, or read about, the amazing moments in life that were just like the best times that you've ever had that you want to remember forever. In my mind, I kind of say, well, why wouldn't you want to have those things written down? So starting this year, I really want to get back to journaling, and hopefully I'm able to do that. And I would challenge you, if you have never journaled, to just try it and see what you think about it. Try different styles. There's different journals out there. There's ones that kind of ask you questions that guide you through different subjects, or you can just start with a blank page. If you have journaled and you have a different experience than me, please comment below and share what your experience is and why you journal or why you don't journal, and let's have a conversation about it. Thanks for watching. Bye.